Good evening. I wanted to post one last video before I actually am going to unplug and be offline for about a week. A little more than a week, probably. And so, yay to those who dread my videos and think of me as someone who's negative or opposing or misled or seeking something for myself, all of which the Lord knows, but I believe all of which are completely false. But my main last burden before I stop posting videos for a bit is just on the concept of totalitarianism. I believe that just as the political movement in China became totalitarian, as I was reading this book, My Unforgettable Memories, I just saw so much parallel between the Chinese government under Mao Zedong and how the church life, quote, quote, church life runs, or a lot of the underlying approaches to the church life. So I looked up totalitarianism and what the difference is between that and authoritarianism, and I appreciate anyone weighing in the comments or clarifying or making your own videos. But one of the main differences, it sounds like, both are repressive, both discourage independent thinking, etc. But authoritarianism does discourage also normal social institutions. And from what I read of the differences, totalitarianism matches more to me how the Lord's recovery runs or it operates. And one thing that's just particularly sad to me is, and it hits home, is just the approach of totalitarianism, even in the way of marriages, abusive marriages in this organization, of which mine is one. And, I'm facing a situation where, I probably won't go into it really in detail, but the financial abuse is pretty heavy, and maybe I will make a video with specifics about it. I just don't know how much I'm allowed to say with the whole legal process going. But I'll just say this, and that is that my husband, who lives elsewhere, says that he has a realtor standing by to sell our house. And to him, our house is just a commodity that we can liquidate in order to be able to afford the expensive legal fees involved in trying to get a legal separation. And to me and to our adult kids who are still really struggling and trying to heal, this is our home. And my husband lives right now with a brother in Anaheim, but his parents also own at least two houses that are each over 4,500 square feet. And my father has passed away, and my mom lives in a very, very small unit in senior living in Seattle. Both of my husband's, his brother and his sister that are his stepfather's biological children, both live in homes that were provided or largely provided by my husband's parents. Our house is not, and we've lived here for 20 some years. And to him, it's like, well, if we can't afford lawyers, let's have a realtor that will just sell the house. And it's really because of an underlying approach of totalitarianism, where I was told that any nuance of disagreement is not allowed, and that I cannot say anything that would, quote, make my husband sick, but he said any nuance of disagreement is bad for his health. And so basically I am completely ruled totalitarianly, in a totalitarian marriage But this is supported, and it is in alignment with the way the Lord's Recovery operates. And so I want to read one little part that is in this book by Dr. Lily Shu. And I'm sorry that in one of my recent videos I called her Dr. Lee multiple times, I was told. I haven't rewatched it, but sorry about that. But Dr. Shu says here, absolute submission of Ni's wife. Ni had absolute authority at his own house. And this is how our house ran as well. Until I got the book Boundaries and read it, and I had to completely, get a lot of help to enforce any boundaries in a marriage. But obviously, from what I read recently from an elders training, Brother Lee also just spoke of wives as if, how dare they even pray to the Lord regarding what their husband has a feeling about, that is being a dissenter or something. Anyway, so Ni had absolute authority at his own house. He told one of his co-workers, "After I trained my wife for 7 years, I set her free." For example, when his wife, Charity, picked up some books and newspapers on the floor and put them in place, Ni questioned her, "Who asked you to pick those up? Put them back on the floor. If I do not ask you to pick them up, you should not do that." Then Charity had to put the stuff back on the floor. Later, she told a coworker's wife about this event. The purpose of Ni was to train her to be absolutely submissive. Jesus doesn't treat us that way. I believe he gave us a character, an inward knowing, and if we see something out of place, we just pick it up because there's a proper character there. He doesn't rule us like that as a totalitarian governor. And that's so awful to think of, or to even have experienced to a degree, a marriage in which the husband rules his wife, trains her for 7 years, and then sets her free. So she had no freedom for 7 years. Jesus is the opposite. He sets us free. And with his love, there's no fear. And he just cherishes us. And then there's just grace, and we just want to please him. And that honestly is how I was in my marriage, just wanting to please my husband always, until I absolutely couldn't anymore. And that's how the church life runs, the Lord's Recovery. I know there are some very healthy, I believe there are some healthy situations within what is called the Lord's Recovery. There are healthier localities or cities, churches in cities, where there's less totalitarianism. But I think many of us can testify of a totalitarian approach from either the elders or from the senior co-workers. And it's not how Jesus leads. He washes feet. He's a shepherd. Oh, and I was reading in this, I'll just end with this, but there's an epilogue by Dana Roberts, who co-authored this, and he said that Billy Graham was told, or some people would say he's the most, I'll just read it so I don't get anything wrong. The kitty on my lap, and she doesn't let me move around much, so sorry. He said, God sees the hearts of men and all their works. When Billy Graham heard people saying he was the greatest Christian of the 20th century, he thought otherwise. He suggested it might just be someone who lives the humble life of a farmer. A humble farmer may be the greatest Christian in the 20th century. Anyway, he gives a very, very helpful word, by the way, Dana Roberts. Thank you, brother. He talks about how there was this drive. There's this drive, I believe, in the Lord's recovery, where it's not enough to just be a true church. It's always, there's the desire to be the greatest, the most spiritual, the truest. He also talks about the whole matter of locality, very likely being more of like an address in those days, where you talk about a church in a city because they didn't have like the same address type approach. But the Lord's recovery has made it a legal matter of saying the church in a city is the only way to call a church. But really, churches are called out ones. They're the gathering of called out ones. And the Spirit gathers us. Anyway, there's just a lot here. But I just wanted to post one last thing, and I would like to just really welcome any sharing. I hope Robert Taylor would keep posting videos. I hope there would be more expounding on what totalitarianism is and how that can look in a Christian community, because I think it describes the Lord's recovery. Thank you for listening. Appreciate your prayers. And I won't be responding to comments for at least a week. And may the Lord bless the ending of 2024 and the beginning of 2025 and this upcoming year. May He richly bless each of you listening to this. Thank you for your care.